You've spent so much of your life thinking about others, doing what's expected of you, helping those around you, always putting yourself second. But deep down, you know something's missing. You feel like your energy's been drained, like your time is slipping away. And no matter how much you give, it never feels like enough. And maybe you've started to wonder, why am I doing this? Why do I keep letting people walk all over me? Why can't I just say no? The truth is, you've never truly set boundaries. You've allowed others to dictate your time, your energy, your life. But now you're ready for change. Now you're ready to learn the Sigma code to setting boundaries, to taking control of your life, and to putting yourself first without guilt. Because the reality is, if you don't set boundaries, no one else will. And it's time to stop living on autopilot. It's time to reclaim your life, your peace, and your power. Let's start with the most important lesson here. Boundaries are unselfish. They're necessary. And this is something society doesn't teach us. We've been conditioned to believe that being kind means saying yes to everything, that putting others first means constantly sacrificing our own needs. But what we don't realize is that by doing this, we're doing more harm than good, not just to ourselves, but to the people we're trying to help. Because when we don't set boundaries, we become overwhelmed. We burn out and we end up being of no use to anyone, not even ourselves. Setting boundaries is about respecting yourself enough to say, this is my time, my energy, and I get to decide how it's spent. It's about protecting your peace and knowing that by doing this, you're actually better equipped to help others, because you'll be operating from a place of strength, not depletion. The first step in setting boundaries is recognizing that you have the right to do so. It's easy to think that you're being rude or unkind when you set limits. But the reality is, saying no doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a person who values themselves. It makes you someone who understands that their time is precious. And it makes you someone who's ready to prioritize their well-being. Imagine this: every time you say yes to something that doesn't serve you, you're saying no to something that could, whether it's your health, your goals, or your peace of mind. Every time you overcome, you're robbing yourself of the chance to recharge, to grow, to focus on what truly matters. And that's why it's so important to understand that boundaries are not just a luxury. They are a necessity. They are the foundation for a healthy, productive, and fulfilling life. Now let's get practical. How do you start setting these boundaries? Where do you begin? It all starts with clarity. You have to get clear on what your boundaries are and what you will and will not tolerate. You need to ask yourself, what am I willing to accept and what am I not? This could be related to your time, your energy, your emotions, or even your physical space. For example, if you feel drained every time someone asks you for a favor, it's time to set a boundary. If you're constantly being interrupted during your work or personal time, it's time to set a boundary. If you feel like your emotional energy is being depleted by people who don't give anything back, it's time to set a boundary. Get specific with yourself, because the more clear you are about your limits, the easier it becomes to communicate them. Once you have clarity on your boundaries, it's time to communicate them. And here's where a lot of people get stuck. They think that setting boundaries means being confrontational or harsh. But that's not the case at all. You can communicate your boundaries in a calm, respectful way. You can simply say, I'm unable to take that on right now, or I need some time for myself, or I appreciate the invitation, but I need to decline. The key is to be firm, but kind, and to remember that your boundaries are a reflection of your self-respect, not an attack on anyone else. People might try to push back or guilt trip you, but that's where your strength comes in, when you know that your boundaries are necessary for your well-being. You stand firm in them and you don't back down, because when you back down, you're telling yourself that you don't matter, that your needs don't matter. And that's not true. You do matter and your needs do matter. Now, let's talk about something crucial: the emotional side of setting boundaries. This is where things can get tricky, because setting boundaries can stir up feelings of guilt, fear, or anxiety. And that's completely normal. But it's important to recognize that these feelings are not a reflection of reality. They're just the result of breaking old habits. You see, we've been conditioned to believe that we have to please everyone, that we have to be everything to everyone. But that's a lie. And every time you set a boundary, those feelings of guilt or fear will lessen, because you'll realize that you're doing what's best for you. And the more you practice setting boundaries, the easier it becomes. And soon you'll feel empowered, knowing that you have the ability to protect your peace, to take control of your life, and to live on your own terms. Another important aspect of setting boundaries is respecting others' boundaries as well. Boundaries are a two-way street, and when you respect the limits of others, you create a healthy environment for mutual understanding and respect. If someone sets a boundary with you, honor it. Don't take it personally, and don't try to push them past it. Just as you have the right to set your own limits, so do they. And respecting others' boundaries is a sign of maturity. It's a sign that you understand that everyone has their own needs and limits, and that's what makes relationships healthy. So remember, boundaries aren't just about what you need, they're also about creating space for others to be themselves. As you begin to implement boundaries in your life, you'll notice something incredible. Your life will begin to change. You'll feel more energized, more focused, and more in control, because you're no longer allowing outside forces to dictate your time and energy. You're no longer running on empty. You're no longer giving away pieces of yourself to everyone else. And as you reclaim your autonomy, you'll feel a sense of freedom that you've never felt before. Because when you set boundaries, you give yourself permission to live fully, to show up for yourself first, and to prioritize what truly matters. And that's where the magic happens. That's where you become the best version of yourself. Because when you're whole, when you're at peace, that's when you're able to give to others in a meaningful way. That's when you can truly show up, and that's when your life will begin to thrive. So are you ready to start setting boundaries? Are you ready to stop living for everyone else and start living for yourself? It's time to step into your power. It's time to reclaim your peace, and it's time to stop apologizing for taking care of yourself. Because when you set boundaries, you're choosing to honor yourself. You're choosing to live on your own terms, and you're choosing to create the life you deserve. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, because you will learn a ton of information in the next video.